Back at it again. All right, seeing a place to be. Ric Serritella here on this Saturday, December 20th. Is it really true? 2025. We got one more show here left in the 2025 calendar year. You see the festivities courtesy of Big Law. He was filling in on the big show for me last week. So big shout out to Big Law. He threw up some holiday decorations here for the show. We're going to get a little festive with it as we kick off the first round of the college football playoff. And it all began last night. We're going to get into it. We're going to get our shovels out. We're going to start digging deep into these NFL draft prospects, courtesy of All Access Football and NFL Draft Bible. Of course, we are now 122 days away from the 2026 NFL draft in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I promise you this, nobody, and I mean nobody, will have more NFL draft updates over the next 4 months than allaccessfootball.com. The content is flowing. You can check out the NFL draft headquarters. We got over 1,000 prospects for you to digest, scouting reports, insider intel. Of course, we got our weekly world-famous all-access football report. Yesterday, we posted the Draft Insider. Monday, we'll have the Scout Notebook with some recaps from the College Football Playoff Insider. The underclassmen draft watches flowing. We got the All-Star Game trackers, about 250 players confirmed for that across the Senior Bowl, Hula Bowl, Shrine Bowl, American Bowl. Of course, we'll be on location for all of the All-Star games, as well as the NFL Scouting Combine, the Pro Day trails, counting you down to the 2026 NFL Draft. And we've got a great holiday sale going on if you want to get down on the 2026 Draft Bible. Over 500 in-depth scouting reports, and you can go over to the website now and subscribe and get 50% off. Hey, it's the gift of giving. The December holiday season is here, and nobody loves Christmas more than my co-host. He is, of course, formerly of the UCLA Bruins, the Cleveland Browns, the LA Rams, formerly the St. Louis Rams. Of course, he has scouted in the Canadian Football League, the original XFL, part of the CBS Today show. Also a mentor at Sports Management Worldwide. You see the scroll down there for the Senior Bowl. He teaches the GM and scouting course. Of course, we'll be out there in Indianapolis for the Combine, for the Football Career Conference. And he joins me here each and every Saturday on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch show. Last week, doing a phenomenal job with Big Law. This week, back in the saddle with myself. And, you know, I don't love talking football with anybody more than Russ Lande. He joins us right now from Chicago. Russ, how we doing today?
You know, I am doing good. The last 2 days, it was in the 40s. We had rain. There's no more snow anywhere. It's beautiful. So life is good. And picked up the daughter at the airport last night. So
yeah, big week
for 2 weeks. So
yeah, it's that time of season, the holiday season, the end of the year, the New Year's coming up, and the college football playoff season is arrived and upon us. And of course, we got the bowl game season, and we're tracking some of the top prospects in action over on the website there. But of course, the bowl game season's become more of a kind of like a spring ball session for a lot of these programs, getting the extra practices, a lot of underclassmen, many of the prospects opting out. But college football playoffs are littered with next level Sunday players, Russ. Of course, it all started last night, and we're going to go through each and every single game on the docket for the Saturday schedule. We got 3 big matchups today, and then we'll get into the Friday night light action, the game last night. But first, I do want to ask you this, Russ, because, you know, how did we get to a 12-team playoff? Well, we had the 8 teams. We started with 4 teams, I think, and then it went 8 teams, and then this team didn't get in, and we need to get the best 12 teams into the dance.
Yeah, it's a really weird situation, right?
Yeah, because like when I look at it, we didn't do that though. Like when you have, we're going to talk about James Madison and Tulane over teams such as like Texas and Notre Dame. Like this system is flawed. Would you agree?
I would say this. It is flawed in the sense that the likely teams that got in from the smaller places like James Madison, like Tulane, they're probably going to be a mismatch because I just think overall talent-wise, it's going to get ugly. But at the same time, there has to be a road I would think, for somebody that's not in a power four to get into one of these games. So how do you do that in a fair, reasonable manner? And that to me is the big debate because yes, were Texas and Notre Dame, are they better than probably Tulane? Almost assuredly, James Madison. Yeah, I would say yes. But do you hold the space for one of those schools? Um, I personally think if it were me, and this is where it's hard to do, it's hard to say put all your faith. I would say, all right, we've got our top schools, whatever the top 8 or 10, and let's put people like you, me, and let's watch film as a group and identify what are the next 3 or 4 teams. Instead of going on strength of schedule, instead of going on things like that, let's actually watch the film and figure out who are the four most talented teams to fill out this 12-team roster so that we have the best teams.
Yeah, and to me, it's like, okay, we had it. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole on this, but like we saw Ole Miss beat Tulane 45-10 during the regular season. So now, why do they get another shot at this? I don't think it's fair to the other teams that were left on the outside in. If you're a mid-major program and you run the table and you go undefeated, sure, put them in. But these teams lost.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with you. Yeah, especially, I mean, and I'm not trying to knock him, but I mean, let's be fair. James Madison, you have to go undefeated. You have to be undefeated, and not just undefeated, but dominant. Tulane,
Right.
same sort of thing. So that, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's hard to look, and hey, I get. People can argue the way I get Miami being in over Notre Dame because they beat them, plain and simple. I don't want to hear any other arguments. That
Absolutely.
to me is as simple as it gets. But when you're talking about bringing up teams that are playing with probably a fifth of the money budget in terms of to use for players for NIL, much smaller facilities, much less overall athletic talent on the field, it's very hard for me to say, okay, we're going to put a team in that already lost to a P4 team. And I think your point about if a team was undefeated, that's one thing, because then you can't spit in the face of an undefeated team. But a team that's lost to a P4 team already, how do you justify throwing them in the mix again?
That's right. And look at Indiana. They went out and earned it. Go get a coach that can turn around a program, run the table, go undefeated, and then there's no questions left unanswered. But we're going to answer a lot of questions about these NFL draft prospects, we think, because they did leave us some quiz. They did leave us wondering a little bit last night, and we're done with the opinions. We're going to get into straight draft talk now for the next hour of power. So buckle up, hunker down. Let's get into this Oklahoma-Alabama affair, Russ. You know, Oklahoma now 0-5 in the college football playoff all time. They just can't seem to get over the hurdle. They drew first blood, but then Alabama got rocking and rolling, and we saw special teams. We saw turnovers, and we saw a lot of big points on the scoreboard here.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. That first 2 or 3 series, I was almost like, wow, is this going to be an Oklahoma walk? And then all of a sudden you started to see Alabama sort of take a deep breath, and they said, hey, we're not going to get 17 points back and get in this immediately, but we're going to get a drive, and we're going to get some points, and slowly but surely they climb back in it. It was one of those games where, to me, it was odd that Oklahoma literally, once they got that lead, it seemed like they couldn't avoid screwing up. They kept making one mistake after another, whether it was the punter with the drop punt, whether it was a few different opportunities to
a kicker who didn't miss all season,
right? And he missed a short one. Like it was very odd. And I don't want to kill the kicker because without him, they might have lost another game or two this year because he was so perfect all year. But yeah, it was a very odd game. And I mean, to me, the thing that came out of it was all season we had talked about John Mateer, where is he? We had mentioned Deion Burks, the receiver at Oklahoma, saying, you know, he hasn't gotten a chance to really do his thing. Well, I'll tell you one thing. He did his thing last night.
Yeah.
And he showed me that he's an NFL slot receiver. I mean, he showed the juice. He showed the ability to make guys miss. The tackle, Derek Simmons for Oklahoma, a little bit of struggles. I was a little bit concerned as how he's going to handle really being an edge guy. We had talked about it a few times. He's got those shorter arms, probably going to be better suited to playing inside. And for Alabama, I mean, I saw a lot of the same things we talked about all year. But the one thing that jumped out to me was I think both Mateer for Oklahoma, Ty Simpson for Alabama, neither one of them, from what I saw in last night's game, looked like they are ready to make the jump to the NFL. They both look like guys who could use another year to get experience to have a chance at being the player they want to be at the next level. I was very impressed with Jeremy Bernard. He barely even touched the ball early on, but then he became the go-to guy in the second half. Jam Miller made some good runs, as did the Hill kid. I thought Alabama it's a big statement about their head coach that they kept their cool and they just chipped away. After being down 17, it was just one drive after another. They didn't panic. They played good football. Tim Keenan getting the blocked punt, which I don't think you ever see for a 300-pounder, was unbelievable.
Awesome.
But yeah, I think Alabama deserves a lot of credit for keeping their cool, not panicking early on. I don't think their quarterback played a great game. He missed a number of throws that he should have made. But overall, he avoided the big mistakes most of the game, and they did a good job. I just came away looking at it like Simpson didn't look comfortable, and Mateer, to me, the big question is, can he read the defense? He had the one big one early that was the interception, but then later there was one or two where it was clear he threw to the wrong spot. And those two, to me, said these guys need to be in college another year. If there's a way for Mateer to work it out, I know he was a transfer portal guy from Washington State, but I don't think either one of them looks like they're ready. And the other thing I learned is, and you and I have both seen this for years and years about quarterbacks and prospects, and Mateer sort of is the ultimate indicator. I don't care how strong your arm is. I don't care how talented you are throwing the ball from awkward positions. Don't throw the ball regularly when your feet are in the air. That's left to Patrick Mahomes when he's in his prime, and that's the only human who should be doing that. Everybody else, keep your feet on the ground, make your throws. He made some beautiful throws last night, and he made some awful ones when he was trying to jump and make throws. You can't do that. So that's something he has to work on to become the quarterback he has the arm talent to be.
John Mateer reminds me of, remember the And One mixtape, the street ball, basketball, they go around playing in hard. That's what John Mateer is. He's a street baller. And I came away with the same impressions because he can't read progressions. If the first read isn't there, he tucks and runs. And you saw the pick six interception. It was costly. And the more I watched him, he kind of reminded me a lot of what Jackson Dart is, right? A guy that really can't progress through the reads. First chance to tuck it and run it, that's what he does. And really, like, Mateer and Dart are both quarterbacks now that are probably more dangerous with their legs than they are with their arm. And Ty Simpson, you're right. I mean, early on, looked very uncomfortable. I think, he got into more of a rhythm as the game wore on. He made the throws he needed to, kept the chains moving. You see the flashes there with Simpson. What I would say is this. I agree with you that going back to school another year would be the smart decision in terms of his development.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's the right decision in terms of business sense, because I look at this draft class, Russ. I can't find a franchise quarterback. In fact, the only guy that's really going to be put a place on that pedestal is who Ty Simpson's going to face next week in Indiana and Fernando Mendoza. And the Hoosiers, by the way, are a touchdown favorite in that game. But I will say this. Should Simpson advance next week, beat Mendoza in the matchup, go on and win a national championship, well, I don't know if Ty Simpson's draft stock will ever be higher. And we saw what happened to Garrett Nussmeier, right? We saw what happened to Drew Allar. And to me, I think Ty Simpson's going to have a very big decision on his hands, and I think it really might come down to how this college football playoff pans out from here.
Yeah, it's a really interesting debate because I think we both agree that what you see on film now is not what you want to see as your final sort of picks of a kid coming out of college. You'd like to see him be a little bit better. But I get it. The sooner you get in, when your draft stock is high, the sooner you can get a bigger contract. Because if he does go in the first round, that means he's getting a guaranteed 4-year deal. But the big concern to me is, in terms of him coming out, and maybe his draft stock never would be higher, is the history, and you and I have talked about it, quarterbacks with 1 year of starting the failure rate is astronomical. So do you say, I want to get in quickly when my draft stock is highest to make sure I get that initial payday? Or do I say, you know what, maybe even if I come back next year and maybe I have a little bit up and down year, but I'm a better overall quarterback, and maybe I don't go in the first round, maybe I go in the second, I have a longer term career because I put more time in. Because remember, if he doesn't get a second contract, it'll be, and I'm not trying to knock that, it could be Mitch Trubisky. Second overall pick, and now Mitch is a good backup. But what if Simpson could wait a year? Maybe he ends up being the 28th pick next year instead of the 15th or the 12th or the 10th. And he's a better quarterback for it. And then he gets that big second contract. My only thing is, what's best? I get the draft stock part, but what's best long-term? Quarterbacks can play 18 years now. What's best to guarantee you become a quality starter as opposed to a journeyman who struggles to make it?
No, it's an interesting debate. I also think, you got to look at next year. You've got the Dylan Raiolas of the world, and you're probably going to be up against Dante Moore and Arch Manning, and it's going Lenore Sellers, and it's going to be quite an interesting draft decision for Ty Simpson. John Mateer clearly needs a lot of. I mean, I don't know if he would even go on day 3 at this stage if he was in this year's draft.
He reminds me of a lot is that kid Tommy Stevens. Came out a while back.
Yeah, Stevens is a lot bigger, I think.
Yeah, bigger kid, but athletic, sort of a better runner than thrower type deal. So
right.
So maybe Mateer is that third down quarterback in the CFL.
Yeah, well, I think he'll get a long look-see at the NFL, but he's got a long ways to go. I will say this: I love these games because big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games, and Tim Keenan, you didn't hear much from him throughout the game, but that big blocked punt and like you mentioned, Deion Burks, even in the losing effort to have a huge game on that platform, these games matter. And I think, these are kind of the lasting impressions that NFL scouts get to see. And, even our Mason Thomas, who missed 7 weeks, good to see him back into action.
No doubt.
Any other players you want to discuss
here?
No,
those are the big ones. But, I just want to sort of follow up on the point you made about, like, this is the last time, the last impression. Mm-hmm. I always remember to this day, because I didn't like Mitch Trubisky coming out. And I remember he was playing in a big bowl game. And I remember talking to a scout after that game to say, what'd you think? And he said, Russ, he said, the thing that bothers me, he said, until the second half, I didn't even remember he was playing quarterback because he did nothing. And it wasn't he did anything terrible. He just didn't do anything that drew your attention. It does say something. Those big games matter. So, yeah, like you said about Simpson, he could go out this week and he could put on a show and knock Mendoza a little bit down, right? I mean, these big games, I mean, hey, in the NFL, it's great to say it's great to win in week 8 and week 12, but what matters, and the only reason Eli Manning's even being discussed for the Hall of Fame is because he had 2 postseasons that are great. If you just looked at his regular seasons, he wouldn't even be in the top 100 quarterbacks probably ever. But those postseasons, big games matter.
Well, winning is what the bottom line entails when it comes to the game of football. And one last point I'll make about this game is you got to give Kalen DeBoer credit where credit is due, because this guy, he wins big games, stared down adversity, and came up big in a game where everybody thought Oklahoma was going to take this. And with all the side noise, distraction, Michigan, everything was blocked out. And man, Kalen DeBoer is the real deal. And he's made me a believer because I really wasn't coming into the season, but I now am. All right. Russ Lande, Ric Serritella. This is the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. We've got a lot of prospects to talk. And, of course, you can follow along at home on the Draft Insider I posted yesterday. We've got all kinds of scouting reports. We just talked Oklahoma, Alabama. You can go over to Oklahoma. We got John Mateer scouting reports. Tenga, who was scored a touchdown. Deion Burks. Derek Simmons, who Russ mentioned, as well as, Marvin Jones Jr. with the sack last night. See, it's good. Hey, just a reminder, guys. Hey, I'm out here. And, of course, on the Alabama side, if you go over to the website, we got scouting reports on Ty Simpson, Jeremy Bernard. How about that catch Bernard had
Unbelievable.
Mawson
Unbelievable.
defender,
Right.
unbelievable athleticism, body control, concentration, strong hands with that Jeremy Bernard, and we've got scouting reports on Caden Proctor and Justin Jefferson, Domani Jackson, another projected first round pick. So head over to the website, check it out, and we're going to get into the first game of the day. And I honestly, the most excited game, in my opinion, the most anticipated game, I believe. And in terms of the college football rankings, Miami ranked number 10 at 10-2, Texas A&M at number 7, 11-1. And, you know, the big debate was whether or not Miami was going to get in. Texas A&M, with that late season loss at Texas, Russ, has you maybe questioning the Aggies a little bit coming into this matchup. And one thing I will say before we break it all down is that in these college football playoffs, the short history has told us experienced signal callers tend to win out. And Carson Beck has a tremendous amount of experience in the college football playoff, something that redshirt sophomore Marcel Reed does not have as much of, and I think this might count for something.
Well, I think there's no doubt. I mean, the people can complain all they want. Carson Beck may not have lived up to the hype early on in his college career, but I think when you see what he's done at Miami, you see he has become more, I don't know if the word would be consistent, more relaxed. It doesn't seem like he's rushing through things. It seems like he understands where he's at. And think about it. He's got good receivers. The Marion kid from BYU and UConn, CJ Daniels. He's got a veteran O-line, starting with Brockermeyer at center, with Inez Cooper, the massive Markel Bell. He's going to get a chance to make some plays, even though obviously you have to respect some of the pass rushers and the D-line over there at A&M. I think Miami, having a veteran quarterback like Beck, compared to Reed, who I think you saw in that Texas A&M game, he struggled with consistency. I don't think there's any doubt that Reed physically can do what he wants out there. He's got a big arm. He's athletic. The consistency is what you want to see. He very much reminded me of a young kid who's still figuring it out. So, yeah, I think Miami has a huge advantage going into this. I think really it's going to come down to Carson Beck. If he plays good mistake-free football, I think Miami wins this going away.
Yeah, I think Miami has a good shot to pull off. I think it'd be a slight upset, not a major upset, but I think Miami has a really good chance here. And we're going to have some good one-on-one matchups too, like two potential first-round picks when you talk about Miami offensive tackle Francis Mauga going up against Texas A&M edge rusher Cassius Howell.
Yep.
And you talk about positioning in that first-round pecking order, as well as Reuben Bain Jr. over there at Miami. Is he an inside guy? Is he an outside guy? He's definitely a first-round pick. I think scouts are still trying to figure that one out as well. Now, Marcel Reed did announce that he is going to return to College Station. He's draft eligible, but he's only a redshirt sophomore, so he is going to return. However, I totally expect KC Concepcion to come out in this year's draft, Russ. And this is a guy who's very dangerous in space. He can be used on end arounds. He lines up on the outside. He lines up on the inside. You know, he could even line up at running back. He's just a jitterbug out there in that KC Concepcion. But who do you want to talk about in this matchup?
Well, firstly, the one thing I wanted to mention, because we talked about Simpson, we talked about Mateer, we talked about obviously Mendoza. I think it would be idiotic of us to at least not mention that Carson Beck is probably going to be a guy, if he does well in these playoffs, that's going to move back up into discussion to be a first-round pick. He's a big, talented kid. You got to believe, now they'll find out through interviews and stuff like that, the maturing, if that has come along, then this is a kid with a lot of physical tools. So, but in terms of matchups, yeah, you mentioned Concepcion. Can't wait to see him out there. The one that I'm interested to see, and it's weird, is both of A&M's tackles, Trey Zune and then Crownover, very different guys. One's long and linear Zune and short arms, so you don't know if he can play tackle at the next level. And Crownover is just a massive human being. I want to see them, just because I'm biased, I want to see them go against David Blay, the defensive tackle, and Akeem Mesidor, who's one of my favorite guys in college football, Canadian kid.
Yes.
I want to see how Mesidor does against these guys. This is a great sort of challenge for Mesidor to say, I am a legit NFL prospect, or am I more of just a CFL only guy? I think he's a legit NFL guy. I also really am excited to see A&M's D-line they got a bunch of guys. You mentioned Howell, but Regis is a really good football player. Oniedem, Deion Hayes. I mean, they've got a lot of good football players that I think are going to challenge Miami. Their tackles, you mentioned the one kid, I mentioned Bell. They have 2 tackles, Cooper, Brockmeyer. This is a good offensive line. This is going to be a great battle. We've talked a lot in the past year since we started doing this show about with all the flash outside, the games are still won in the trenches. This one's going to be won in the trenches. Whichever team's O-line wins, I think that's the team that wins the game. And I think Miami's got a little edge there. And also add in the fact that Miami's O-line can be actually a little worse than A&M's because of Beck's experience. It'll seem like they're a little better because he'll anticipate pressure. He'll know what may be coming. Whereas Reed, although maybe more physically gifted as an athlete, is still young as a quarterback. So he may not help his O-line as much as Beck does in terms of making quick decisions, anticipating what's coming.
Yeah, I think, the on-field maturity of Beck has definitely come a long way. I think what scouts are more concerned about is the off-the-field maturity. And we talked about it right here on this very show on numerous times. When things don't go Carson Beck's way, they are never Carson Beck's fault. And, he might not necessarily be wrong in these post-game press conferences, but when you throw your coaches under the bus, when you throw your players under the bus, and you're supposed to be this franchise quarterback and you lack that kind of accountability, I think that's where these, date dash 15-minute interviews at the combine and getting to know these guys really is going to make or break the draft status of Carson Beck.
Oh, I think there's no doubt. And I think I've told you this story. I don't know if I've told it to other people, but I still remember one time we were interviewing a quarterback and we were going over one of the things that we always do in the NFL is you get basically a clip made by his college team of every time he made a mistake, according to the coaches. Not so much just a fancy interception, but a coaching staff, there may be a time where a kid throws a touchdown and they say, yeah, that was a mistake. He was supposed to go to this receiver. He went there because he couldn't see the field and the guy ran it in 20 yards. So we did this with one quarterback, and I still remember to this day, the receiver clearly ran the wrong route. It was clear as day and everything, and the quarterback threw an interception, and the quarterback, unlike many quarterbacks who would say, oh, he screwed up or whatever, the quarterback literally said, yeah, that one's completely on me. He goes, I did an awful job in the huddle of making sure that he understood what the play call was and what his route that he needed to run. He said, I should have been more clear. And even though we all know that if you actually put a lie detector on him, he's going to say, yeah, it was his fault. He ran the wrong route. But the maturity to say, yeah, I know I can't say that publicly. The blame doesn't go on him. It all starts with the quarterback. That's what you want to see when your guy is the signal caller. It's always their fault. You want them to eat it in private. When they're in a meeting, they can say, hey, you ran the wrong route. But when you're discussing it publicly, you can never do that. So, yeah, your point about how do you handle press conferences, how do you do that? You can't be a guy throwing people under the bus if you're going to be a professional quarterback and be a successful one.
No, wholeheartedly agree. And I will say one last thing about this game. We talk about draft eligible prospects on this show. We'd be remiss if we did not mention Malachi Toney and what a fabulous freshman this kid has been. I mean, I gotta say, I've been so impressed with this guy's Malachi Toney, just the game-breaking ability. He reminds me, Russ, of a Deebo Samuel, just almost very similar body frame. And he could be a running back. He could be a slot. He could be an end around. Kind of, they use him very similar to how Percy Harvin was used over in the Gators. But I think this Malachi Toney is probably going to be the X factor of this matchup, and I think he's the guy. If he makes a big play, I think he's going to give the Hurricanes a strong chance here. I think he might be the best player on the field.
I agree with that. I think pure, just I can do whatever I want whenever I want. There's no doubt he's a freak of nature. He's one of those guys, sort of like the Jeremiah Smith kid with Ohio State. you watch him and you think, man, wouldn't it be great to get him in the NFL now?
Yeah.
But we all know that most guys his age would be a disaster in the NFL. But yeah, he when you watch him, his ability to change the game, his ability to do things that very few players on the field physically are capable of, combined with his natural, he just sort of has a feel. When the ball's in his hands, there's a feel, there's an instinct, there's an awareness. That yeah, this kid to me, he's going to be a guy that there's going to be getting a lot of discussion when the time comes and he's eligible. There's going to be a lot of people talking about this kid at the number one spot overall in the draft if there isn't a franchise quarterback that year.
Yeah, he'll be 3 and done down there in Coral Gables for sure. Great to see our good friend Douglas Dorner in the chat room. Says, go Canes. Got the Hurricanes. We got North Texas. I know he's all about the North Texas and Hurricanes. So always great to have Douglas Dorner on the show. And, of course, if you got any questions or want to drop us a line in the chat room, check in, tell us where you're watching from. Russ is out there in Chicago. I'm over here in the Jersey Shore. Russ Lande, Ric Serritella, breaking it down, chopping it up, talking NFL draft. We do it each and every Saturday, live 10 a.m. Eastern. Of course, the Draft Insider. You can follow along at home. We just talked Miami and Texas A&M. We've got scouting reports on Hurricanes players, Carson Beck, Mark Fletcher, the running back who we didn't talk about, Maiga, the first-round tackle, Inez Cooper, an inside interior offensive lineman, Akeem Messidor, who Russ Lande loves, Ruben Bain Jr., maybe the first overall pick. Texas A&M, we got scouting reports on Kevin Concepcion, who we talked about, Trey Zune, Cassius Howell. And you can go over to allaccessfootball.com. Of course, we got the holiday sale, 50% discount. That includes the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, which will have over 500 in-depth scouting reports. And we're going to be well above that watermark because the front office department here is just cranking out the evaluations. And we're going to have some more evaluations as we get into our next matchup here. Of course, the Texas A&M Miami game is at noon Eastern. That will be followed by Tulane and Ole Miss at 3:30 p.m. This one's going to be on TNT. Tulane, as we alluded to, the number 11 seed at 11-2. Ole Miss at 11-1. Russ, these two teams met back in September. We talked about it at the top of the show. 45-10 thrashing. Quarterback Jake Retzlaff of Tulane was actually benched in that game. And now we have Trinidad Chambliss, the other quarterback for the Rebels, who at this time last year was guiding Ferris State to a Division II championship. He is now on the big stage trying to guide these Ole Miss Rebels minus Lane Kiffin into an FBS national championship. Let's talk about it, shall we?
Well, firstly, obviously, we're not saying it's going to happen, but seeing Trinidad Chambliss come from a Ferris State, now in his first year as a P4 guy, potentially a national championship, reminds me a little bit of a guy that came from junior college, won the national championship, then stepped over to Auburn and had a great run and became number one overall pick. I'm not saying Chambliss is going to do that because he's not that skill, that level of a quarterback, but there's some similarities in terms of team. I think when you look at Ole Miss, I mean, there's a lot of talent there. I mean, this Chambliss may not be a legit NFL starter guy, but when you watch this kid play, he's poised. He can make plays. He doesn't throw balls in the bad spots, and he's got a lot of talent. He's got Stribling, the double transfer kid from Oklahoma State, Washington State. He's got Wallace, the receiver from Penn State that you brought up earlier in the year. I mean, he's got Daquan Wright as a tight end. They have legit guys to get the ball to. They have two good offensive tackles in Pounds and Williams. I mean, they've done a really good job of building an offense around a quarterback, and I give them a lot of credit, that they brought in from Ferris State. Nobody really knew if this kid was going to be the guy. Like, is he good enough to be the guy? They built an offense around him, gave him every chance, had a great coach in terms of Kiffin coaching him. He's a great quarterback developer, and he's just blossomed. I think this is going to be a really, really hard game for Tulane. When you look at what Tulane has, I just don't see the same weapons. They have a few good players in terms of like Derek Graham, their tackle, their center, Jack Hollifield. They're good, solid players. But these are guys that are on the fringes of maybe getting drafted. And they're going against guys like Xavier Harris, who's a monster at Ole Miss. Then they have their whole back end of their secondary. These are all guys that are going to be late round picks. I just look at this game and say, man, I would love to see a close one. I really hope it turns out well, but I could see this being a boat race within 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, this is the game of the day. If you need a little midday nap, probably second half of Ole Miss Tulane is probably where it's going to come in on this day. But I'll say this: I mean, you got to really dig in the crates here to find some legit pro prospects on the Tulane side of the ball. The talent mismatch is just so lopsided, and we saw it, in the first time these two teams matched up. So I will say this. For Tulane, maybe next year's draft, keep an eye on Anthony Brown. He's a wide receiver, also a kick returner. I think his special teams value may get him a look at the next level. But, Retzlaff, to me, he'll be lucky. He'll be lucky to get a look at the CFL, I think.
I agree with you on that. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a linebacker, Sam Howard, good, solid player.
Yeah.
Cameron Hamilton, their D lineman, is a good solid player. Both those guys have a chance to be day 3 picks. But the difference is we're saying here's a guy or two has a chance of being a day 3 pick. When we look at Ole Miss, we're literally talking about 4 guys, 5 guys that should go by the end of day 2 minimum. Yeah. Some of them might go day 1. So, I mean, it's a big jump talent-wise. And to expect it to be close, I think if it is, give that new Tulane head coach a lot of credit because, wow, he's going to have to pull a rabbit out of a hat, in my opinion.
Well, this will be an introduction to the SEC, right? Because he'll be joining the conference next year. But I think this Rebels defensive line is going to feast. And you mentioned Xavier Harris. I mean, that guy is going to take up 2-3 bodies every play. Plays a little upright. I want to see him stay a little bit more consistently low, but I mean, you talk about Princewell Melon, whose brother plays for the Carolina Panthers. He's on the edge. Suntarine Perkins, he's played a little bit more off-ball linebacker, but we saw his pass rush prowess last year when he was used in that type of role. I think he'll be one of the more interesting draft evaluations come April. But Trinidad Chambliss, just so you guys are aware, he applied for an additional year of eligibility with the NCAA. He's waiting to hear back, and this stems back from his redshirt freshman year that was retroactive to Division II. We'll see if the NCAA honors that waiver. If not, Trinidad Chambliss will be in this year's draft.
And I got to tell you, I'm not sure where he fits as an NFL guy, but I'll tell you one thing. If I were a CFL team, he'd be a guy I would be drooling over. I think he's a guy who could go up there, have a long career, a very successful career. I think he's good enough to play in the NFL, maybe not as a starter, but there's a lot when I look at this kid that reminds me of the longtime NFL backup, Taylor Heineke. There's something to this kid that's got a little bit of Heineke. Deceptive athlete, makes better throws than you anticipate on the move, and just has that sneaky ability to make good plays and avoid big mistakes. I'm not saying this kid's a starter, but there's something about this kid that makes me think he could play in the NFL and earn a paycheck as that number 2.
Yeah, you think of a guy like Sean Clifford, who came out of Penn State. Not a big guy, smart decision maker there, can extend plays, played on a big stage. I think Trinidad Chambliss will get a long look. And honestly, like the way this quarterback class is shaping up, I mean, somebody might even roll the dice on this kid in the 7th round.
Especially if you have an athletic number 1. Like if you're Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts.
Well, Lamar Jackson, they almost pulled the trigger on Shador last year. So, I mean, here's a guy, similar skill set, right? You just let him sit behind Lamar.
Let him be your 3rd for a year and see what he develops. Because if you're going to run an offense that stresses athleticism, throwing on the move, decision-making, intelligence, this kid's sort of that guy. He may not have the prototypical ability to be a true pocket passer, but a lot of the other things really click the boxes. And especially to me, most guys that move up from lower level to higher level, historically, it takes them a year or 2 to adjust. This kid literally got thrown into the fire, and he took the heat, stepped in, and Coach Kiffin, like I said, he's a great quarterback coach. He's also a hard coach. Like, he's hard on his guys. So for this kid to take that, stepping in, handle Coach Kiffin, coaching and step in and be productive, I mean, says a lot. I think this guy's going to be really successful wherever he plays, whether it's a backup in the NFL or a starter in the CFL.
Yeah, and if he does get that year of eligibility, I wonder if he would be tempted to join Lane over there in LA. That would be interesting. Yeah,
that'd be. If I were him, I wouldn't. But hey, to me, he's got a good thing going. Why screw it up? But I get you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got scouting reports on Trinidad Chambliss, Trey Wallace, DeJean Stribling, Xavier Harris, Aaron, Suntarine Perkins. Go over to allaccessfootball.com. Take advantage of that holiday sale. Save 50%. That is the biggest sale of the year, and you won't find that again, especially as we count you down into draft season. 122 days away, and we got one more game to break down for today with Russ Lande, Ric Serritella. We're here each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Today's December 20th, 2026. I hope you got all your holiday shopping in the books. You're getting ready to count down the new year and ring it in with a banger. And Oregon, they're hoping to be playing past the New Year's, Russ. And I think the Ducks are a very legitimate contender here to compete for the national championship. Now, when I was down at Harrisonburg back in August at James Madison, I put out a tweet and said, you know what? I'm convinced this is the best mid-major group of 5 non-Power 4 program in the nation. And I believe in Bobby Chesney. He was rewarded with a job at UCLA. He's doing the cross-country affair, trying to pull this ultimate upset off. And I give him props for trying. I also feel like, as much as I love Bobby Chesney, you're also cheating the UCLA Bruins because the portal opens up in about 2 weeks. You got signings, recruiting. So I don't understand how you could be dedicated to that process when you're in the college football playoff. That's a conversation for another day. We've talked about some of these James Madison prospects on the radar in past shows, Russ. Again, Oregon's just in a whole nother upper echelon in terms of class and talent and 4 and 5 stars. You're not going to find that on James Madison. And this game might actually be close for about a half, but the Dukes come in with I don't even know if they have a puncher's chance to win this game, but it will be, I think, close for a little while. They should stick around.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and hey, let's be fair. Firstly, Coach Chesney, fortunately for him, he turned success at James Madison into the best job in college football as the head coach.
Holy Cross, really? Holy Cross,
James Madison to the greatest job in all of college football. I mean, he gets to go be a Bruin. So, firstly, we got to mention there's 2 guys here that I don't even know if you're on the radar, but these are guys I know. I mean, wide receiver Jalen Sanchez and center Zach Greenberg. I mean, I know you're probably not paying attention, but Sanchez right there from North Bergen. Zach Greenberg from Livingston. These are 2 Jersey guys. So, I mean, these are legit guys, right?
Yeah, they got a lot of Jersey.
They got the Jersey guys in there. They got their right tackle, Patrick Murtry. He's got a chance. I think he's a guy that's on that fringe for day 3, probably a priority free agent. They got wide receiver Nick DeGenero. He's a guy that legitimately is, I think, in the mix to be a day 3 guy if he does well in the offseason in terms of getting prepared and getting to that next level. Defensively, they have a handful of guys. I don't know if any of them are really legit looking to get a draft. They're looking for it, but I don't know if they're going to get a real chance. They have Terry Lockett is a defensive tackle, undersized kid, about 6'1" and change, 280. Trent Hendrick, an undersized 6-foot linebacker. Elijah Cub, corner at about 5'10", 5'11", and Jacob Thomas at 6 foot. The one thing I have to mention, I don't know if you just something that poked into my brain as I was reviewing their team and everything and looking at my reports on a few guys was, do you realize who their backup quarterback is at James Madison? He's the guy that caused all the flub a year ago.
Yeah,
he said,
Matt
Sluka. Yeah. Who said, I'm going to leave UNLV while they're undefeated because I'm not getting my money. Goes to James Madison, and guess what? He ain't even the starter. So that is a great example of why the Chambliss kid, what he's done at Ole Miss is impressive. He went up a level and took that job at Ole Miss and is the guy. Sluka went down a level, didn't win the job. This is going to be a challenge, though. I mean, we've talked about Dante Moore. He's had some games that looked awful this year, but he's also had some games where you could see why NFL teams are intrigued by this kid because he's athletic. He can throw on the move. He's not a little athletic guy. He's going to measure in that 6'2" to 6'3" range. He's been through it in terms of the notoriety. Number one recruit in the country. Goes to UCLA. Didn't exactly work out great, but started a bunch of games. Transfers up to Oregon. So he's dealt with a lot of adversity early in his career. I'm excited to see him. We've talked about little Noah Whittington, short little dude, but I love this kid. Yeah. This kid's going to play on Sundays. I like him a lot. They've got the Evan Stewart. They got Gary Bryant. They got the Sadiq, the tight end, who we've talked about a number of times. And that O-line. I mean, Isaiah World, the guy that came into the year with all the hype at left tackle. How about Alex Harkey?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Senior Bowl, kid that we had talked about early in the year, like where does he fit? I think at the Senior Bowl, it wouldn't shock me if they play him at guard and at tackle because he's only got those 32-inch arms, but I think he's going to get a look. Both their guards there. Pregnon is a really well thought of guy, powerful kid, athletic. Bedford, the other guard, I mean, big, huge kid, almost 6'6" with almost 35-inch arms. It is going to be a challenge for James Madison. I mean, how do you get any pressure on this quarterback? How do you slow down this rushing attack? And then what do you do with Oregon's defensive guys? You have Ugalele, Washington coming at you, pass rushers from inside and outside. They're DBs with Kennedy and Johnson. I mean, this is going to be a major challenge for James Madison. And I should note, I won't be able to watch the game. And I think it's probably officially blacked out in the state of Illinois because anybody that doesn't watch the Bears playoff game, I think they're going to evict you from the state. So nobody around here will be watching this game because if you don't watch the Bears, I'm telling you, you can't be a citizen in Illinois anymore.
Wait, are the Bears playing tonight? Do we have
tonight? Yeah, we got tonight.
Oh, my God.
That's what I'm saying. They're going to literally, I'm going to an ugly sweater party tonight. And literally part of the invite was there will be 3 TVs showing the Bear games. Do not worry. You can watch the game here.
Oh, my gosh. What a great time of the year. We're talking NFL draft. We're talking NFL. We got some breaking news I'll get to in a second. But, if James Madison wants to have a shot, you mentioned Sluka. They need to pull out all the punches. And earlier in the season, we talked about, when I was down there in August, the NFL scouts were coming in. When they were saying, Sluka, he's right around the same size dimensions as Taysom Hill was his senior year, has that athleticism. Maybe he's a Taysom Hill mismatch at the next level. Well, earlier in the season, James Madison was using him in a slash kind of role. And I think, that might be one way to maybe just kind of keep the defense off balance and switch up the looks a little bit. You mentioned DeGennaro. This kid has got rockets strapped to his ankles. I mean, he's a speed burner. He's going to test.
He's going to test very well. He's the guy that has a chance, I think, today to make a statement to just show, hey, I may have been at a non-P4 school, but I am a P4 athlete. And NFL teams, you better pay attention to me.
Yeah, and he's going to have a chance to springboard this down now to the Hula Bowl, which is in 3 weeks. So, hey, have a good game here, go down to the Hula Bowl. Then he starts to build that momentum for his draft season process. You mentioned Pat McMurdy. When I saw him, I wasn't a huge fan of the hip stiffness. I think he's just a big guy. Will probably have to play inside. He's almost like 6'7". He's a 7th-year senior, I believe. He's had some injury issues, but he will, just because of the experience, the size, he'll probably hang out on a practice squad for a year or two. Emmanuel Bush, defensive tackle. I think he had like 7.5 tackles for loss this year. Big interior pass rush presence on the defensive line. Xavier Holmes, another edge rusher that I saw down there in training camp. And we got scouting reports on all these James Madison guys. So you go over to the mid-major report and you can find the scouting reports. Mekhi Rogers, probably a guy nobody knows about, cornerback. Yep. He'll be eligible for the global draft, I believe, in the CFL. And I like you, was doing some stuff for Toronto, and Mekhi Rogers was a guy I recommended for the neg list because he's got the global eligibility and just lengthy, athletic, raw, doesn't have a lot of he's new to the game, so he's still learning. And the CFL would be a great landing spot for him as he develops. Now, We've got a bunch of scouting reports on the website for Oregon players, including the safety Dylan Thieneman. He's a top 50 guy, top 50 overall prospect. Brian Botcher, we talked about the linebacker, special teams dynamo. You mentioned Mateo Ugalele. I think he's another guy on the day two radar, as well as the other edge rusher, Tua Toti, who's
Yep.
come on, and he may have actually surpassed Ugalele
Yeah,
in terms of draft
you're right
stock.
about that. I forgot to mention him. You are 100% correct.
And then Amari Washington, I think, is right there knocking on the first round mix. Emmanuel Pregnant, I think, is another day two solid guy. I like him more than Isaiah World.
No doubt.
Malik Benson, this is a guy, the wide receiver, big time pedigree, triple transfer, I believe. I mean, he's been all over the place, but I'll tell you what, undrafted free agent. I'm bringing this guy in because he's got make it traits. Keep an eye on Malik Benson. He might be good for a big play today. Now, the two big ones you mentioned, Kenyon Sadiq. This guy, Russ, he's been timed at 23.5 miles per hour in-game speed. I mean, that is unbelievable to me. And I don't think they feature him as much as I'd like for Oregon to in the offense. And he doesn't have the ideal size. I think he's about 6'2.5". But man, he's a mean mugging blocker. This guy's a weapon in the pass game. To me, I think he's the first tight end off the board and a first round pick.
I agree with you. I think you're nailing it right on the screws there. I think he is. And I think when you look at Oregon, I mean, give them credit. They've consistently, over the last 3 or 4 years, found a way to go find elite guys and find some guys that maybe like Harkey were a little bit overlooked and develop them. I mean, I mentioned before, I think this can be a major challenge. I mean, for James Madison to stick around, they're going to have to literally get every break going their way. And they're going to have to overcome the fact that Oregon's offensive line is really good and Dante Moore is really talented.
Well, and that's the last guy I want to talk about, Dante Moore, because I did see his presser, and he seems like he's feeling pressure from the NFL questioning. And he goes, "Hey, man, I know everybody's been asking. Everybody wants to know." He's like, "I haven't made a decision yet. It's been a little bit of a distraction." And I got to say, Russ, though, like for me, for my personal preference, if I had to go out and win a ball game tomorrow at the NFL level and I had to choose one college signal caller to play one game, I'd pick Fernando Mendoza. But if I were to build a franchise and I'm betting on the upside, because I'm all about the upside, this Dante Moore, to me, the tools and the pocket awareness, the presence, the poise, the calm demeanor, you cannot rattle Dante Moore. And I think this guy performs as well as any quarterback in college football under pressure when the pocket breaks down as anyone. And to me, that's what you value when you transition.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I really look at this kid and think you just have to have faith. Firstly, he's a third-year kid. He's not like he's 5 years in. I just think there's so much upside for this kid. I really believe how everything worked out, going to UCLA, starting a bunch of games as the top recruit in the country, coming back to Oregon has matured him a ton. I think he would be better off going back another year, but it wouldn't shock me if he comes out because, like we talked about, he's a big, good-sized kid at over 6'2". He's an athlete. He's got an arm. He can make all the throws. I think the maturity is there. So he's got a chance to work himself into a very good draft position. I like a lot of what he can do. I do think another year would benefit him in college. But, yeah, I agree with you. There's something about this kid in terms of where he's going to be in 5 years that I think very few people can compare to in college football because there's so much talent there.
All right, Russ Lande, Ric Serritella breaking it down, chopping it up. We're here each and every Saturday with the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. We'll continue to break down these college football playoff matchups each and every week. Of course, we'll dive into the All-Star Game circuit come January. We'll be out on location at the NFL Scouting Combine come February. Of course, we'll be counting you down through and along the Pro Day trails in March. We are 122 days away from the 2026 NFL Draft, Destination Pittsburgh. Um, we just got through all the 3 game previews for today, the first round of the playoffs, as well as the first game from last night. If you're just tuning in, you got about an hour till that first game between Miami and Texas A&M kicks off, so you can listen to this show in its entirety. If you are listening later on in the week or live, please do us a favor, smash that like button, share it, and subscribe it. Before we put a ribbon on the show, Russ, with Alabama winning and Kalen DeBoer apparently staying firmly entrenched in Tuscaloosa, the Michigan Wolverines have announced Kenny Dillingham leaves his alma mater of Arizona State to become the next Michigan man for $7.5 million per season, and a staff salary pool up to $11 million to hire his assistants, which would put him at the top of the Big 12. That doesn't make sense, but Kenny Dillingham, the new Michigan head coach, your thoughts?
It's a bold move. I'm interested to see how it works out, especially when I just look at the different options that were there, whether it was guys like John Gruden or people like that. The guy's a hell of a coach. Every scout that I know that's gone into ASU has said this is a guy that's going to be very successful. I just think it's going to be a challenge. Anytime you go from a school that is not generally in that sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, the blue bloods, to put somebody into that position, it's not as easy as people think. And there's a lot that goes with it. Kalen DeBoer has proven he could handle it. It'll be interesting to see how this guy does. He's a smart guy. I've heard he's very able to relate to players, all different background type kids. I think it's going to be a good hire. You know that you're getting a squeaky clean guy. So I'm excited to see how it works out. It's so hard to know how it's going to work out for a guy that's really never been in this spot before at this level. But hey, there's not a lot of big guys out there right now. This kid's been very successful at Arizona State. I'm excited to see how it works out.
Well, this whole scandal at Michigan came down so late in the hiring process that, who else really, like Gruden with all his off the field.
That's a hard sell.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, he's clean. I think he's only like 35 years old. This is a young dude.
Yeah.
And, he had that Sun Devils team. They almost knocked off Texas in the college football playoff a year ago, right? With Scatterboo.
Yep. No, this guy, I think when you look at a lot of the positive things, this guy's creative. He can recruit kids. He's going to be on the forefront of all the new stuff in terms of he's not going to be afraid to try new things. I think there's a lot of positives to like about it. I just think it's always a challenge when any coach that hasn't been at one of these blue blood teams ends up going there, the pressure that gets put on them. Look at Kalen DeBoer. The team's good now. Early in the year, there were people saying fire DeBoer. I mean, even 2 weeks ago when they had 3 losses, people saying fire DeBoer.
If he lost last night, they were saying
exactly. And that's the only question I have for this guy is just, does he understand how much the pressure is going to be on his shoulders that was not there at Arizona State? At Arizona State, if you win 8-9 games regularly, you're there for 30 years. You're at Michigan, you win 8-9 games regularly, you're probably out of work in 4 years. So that, to me, is the only question. It's just the enormous jump in expectations and pressure. But if you're going by what he's done, how he recruits, this young guy, I think there's a lot to like about him and a lot to like the future of Michigan football with him there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think he has any Michigan ties. So it's interesting they went outside of a Michigan man to be their next head coach. I will say, like, Sam Levitt entered the transfer portal, and I think to leave your alma mater, you're saying, hey, you know what? I have an opportunity to have resources, to hire a staff, to go into the transfer portal and sign players. It's a no-brainer for Dillingham. And I mentioned no allegiance to Michigan. I'm just off the top of my head, I don't believe there is. We talked about Kalen DeBoer. He's going to face Indiana next week. One last tidbit here that I caught this morning. DeBoer was the wide receiver and quarterback coach on Indiana staff in 2019. Kirk Signetti was on Nick Saban's first staff at Alabama. So a little bit of a connection there for the round 2 matchup between Alabama and Indiana. That one a 7-point favorite in favor of the Hoosiers. Who would have thunk that coming into the season? All right, Russ, we got about an hour of power in the cans here. Another beautiful edition. We always appreciate the insight and analysis. Of course, we'll be back to do it again next week. Any parting shots for the people before we let you go?
No, just have a little pity. I get to watch 2 games today. I don't get to watch 3. So I'm gonna have to watch the Bears tonight. So just feel a little bit. It's a tough day out here in Chicago. But other than that, you got to be excited.
That's Bears and Packers, is it not? Bears and Packers this week?
Yeah, Bears Packers. Yep.
Man.
It's a massive game.
Yeah.
If the Bears don't win this game, and I hate to say this because I want the Bears to be good, I'm rooting for them, but I have a bad feeling that if they lose this game to Green Bay, who just lost Parsons for the year,
yeah,
I think the bottom could come out and you could see the Bears lose and miss the playoffs. When they are legitimately a young team on the rise, you'd hate to see the bottom fall out. I'm hopeful and confident they will win tonight, but this is the NFL, so you never know.
That's why they play the game. So we'll let Russ boogie on off there in Chicago. Enjoy the festivities all day, Russ, and look forward to chatting with you next week, my man.
That sounds awesome, my man. As always, have a great time being here and look forward to watching the college football and talking with all these people next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the next time I see you, it will be after Christmas. So Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Same to you, my friend. Thank you.
Right. All right. There he goes. Russ Lande here on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. And we got another hour of power in the books. And before we wrap things up, I just want to tell everybody at home, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all the love and support. It's not hard. It's not easy being independent media. It's very hard going up against the mainstream media heavyweights, especially when it comes to NFL draft coverage. But this is our 24th season of providing independent analysis. And I promise you this, nobody's going to be banging you and bopping you over the head with more scouting reports than our staff over at NFL Draft Bible. Of course, it all happens at allaccessfootball.com. And right now we have a limited time 50% discount sale. So you're going to get access to all of our premium content, insider intel, daily draft updates, and the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, which will have at least 500 in-depth scouting reports. But the way we're trending, I think we're going to have even more than that. We might even break the record. The most scouting reports we ever had in one edition of the Draft Bible was 782. It's possible that we may even surpass that number this year, the way we are cranking out scouting reports. Okay. Of course, we'll be on location at all the major all-star games, from the Hula Bowl, the FCS Combine as well. That kicks off during the FCS Championship, but then we'll dive into the All-Star Game circuit. We'll be on location at the Hula Bowl. We'll be at the American Bowl, the East-West Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl. We'll even have representatives down at the College Gridiron Showcase event. Of course, we'll be on location with our Combine Confidential reports out in Indianapolis and the Pro Day trails. Now, in case you didn't know, I am Ric Serritella of allaccessfootball.com, and I want to talk to you about the NFL Scouting Combine because each and every year I've been a part of the Sports Management Worldwide Football Career Conference. And when I tell you this is the largest football industry networking event of the year, I mean it. And each and every year I meet new aspiring professionals. We mix them with established industry veterans. And it's just a smorgasbord of who's who. It's the NFL universe convening in Indianapolis. So I urge you guys to get there. It's going to be in association with the NFL Scouting Combine, which is February 27th and February 28th. We got the Punch Bowl social welcome reception on Thursday night in Indianapolis, followed by an all-day panel on February 28th. Guest speakers are still being confirmed, but we do know this. Adam Schefter has confirmed once again, he does it each and every year. He lends his time, and it's a wonderful experience. The stories that he shares, of course, our good friend Brian Baldinger of the NFL Network will be there. I myself will be one of the SMWW moderators, and I'm looking forward to that. And there's going to be so many great guests, NFL executives, scouts, media, agents. If you work in football, if you aspire to work in football, if you want to expand your network, if you want to learn on the educational panels, go over to smww.com. Registration is now open, and we do have a discount early bird registration sale. If you do get your ticket before January 1st, you will save $150 off of your ticket, and that includes the welcome reception, the conference and workshop sessions, and the networking lunch. They're also going to feed you out there courtesy of Sports Management Worldwide. So check it out, smww.com. I've been honored to be a part of that event for well over the past decade. All right, so we're less than an hour before kickoff. We've got college football action galore. I mean, if you are looking for the NFL stars of tomorrow, head over to allaccessfootball.com today. I think we've got about 140 prospects through the first four games of the first round college football playoffs. I think there's over 60 scouting reports on players who are in action just today. But if you go over to allaccessfootball.com on the menu bar, you click the NFL headquarters, we have over 1,000 players ranked, positional big boards, overall big boards. We got the underclassmen tracker. We got the all-star game tracker. We got the conference prospect trackers. I mean, it's just a nonstop, can't stop, won't stop situation. And again, our 24th year of providing independent coverage. And so we'll be back at it again next Saturday for the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. This was the December 20th, 2025 edition. We have one more show in the 2025 year, and it's all going to go down right here. So thank you so much for tuning in. For Russ Lande, Ric Serritella, we'll catch you next time.